Hello everyone, Vova Shkonde here, and today we finally managed to have my greatest, dearest friend Maria, hailing from Moscow, and now she's a great designer in the Netherlands, studied in greatest school of the country.
The greatest Royal Academy of Art and Sandberg.
Exactly. And now we managed to work on the great project called Factory of Electric Dreams. And today we wanted to discuss the project with you mainly, and you guys can just listen and then just bring up the important topics that were sort of expressed.
Also, Ova, thank you for introduction. Sort of also discuss and touch on the points that worry us in some way, and just reflect on the current trends happening with current conditions, and what is proliferating, what is getting decreased, and what can we all learn from that.
So Mary, tell us, how did the whole idea for the exhibition start?
I was really lucky to get invited by Dayton to work on some kind of new project, which sort of in a way reflects on the trends or things, manifestations happening in society that sort of maybe accelerate the usage or application of certain technology by the cause of current pandemic conditions in the world. That like the economy have to move on, and the world has to stand up from its knees, and there needs to be a solution to come. The idea came to speculate on it and use the power of design to sort of create a accelerated and exhausted future, very sci-fi-like, and reflect on these current trends and what can they add to society or exclude. And in particularly talking a lot about robotics, bioprosthesis, and the future of cyberpunk, which is sort of in this cliche that you know a lot as a sci-fi writer is present, and is it still relevant in our world, and to what extent?
Sure, yeah. So I remember we started this whole conversation back in summer, I think.
Yeah.
It was somewhere like July or whatever when you first brought it up. When we started brainstorming what that could even look like.
Yeah.
I just remembered that just the whole idea of creating something, going into the certain extreme, that in this sort of pandemic people will need to figure out something, and our life will never be like it was before. Because now it's still it's not too extreme, right? We all need to still stay under the lockdown, but there are still some of the things from the past, so crazy to say because past was like a year ago.
True.
That are still present. And I mean, in some countries the lockdown is quite strict, and some others is not that. So of course we are missing some things, but more or less the life is not extremely different, for example. So not as if something that like completely new technology needs to came as a solution for our current state. Like, of course, we're not talking about the vaccination or whatever. This is, of course, important. I think the more of the idea here would be, what if no vaccine could help us? What if the only life in the future could only become possible with some technological breakthrough that will allow us to kind of stay at home, but try to maintain a life in some other way.
Yeah, the sci-fi speculates on like that there is some kind of critical event, and after that like the life should continue, but it will never be in the same form. And to what was happening lately, like everybody can think about the quote of Frederick Jameson, it's easier to imagine the end of the world than the end of capitalism. And I think what we kind of wanted to look at is like how maybe big corporations will re-envision the life for the people through technology.
True. So it's really something that we try to contemplate on, whether the cyberpunk could become the reality in our current situation, because pretty much, as you guys may know, the whole cyberpunk genre is sort of, long story short, I would say that, you know, there are much more technocratic governments are coming into place, or probably even the corporations are much more, even more than now, something that we already can see, that the corporations are really, really powerful, and they are more and more coming into play when it's coming to deciding some political things, or, you know, they enable people to live a better life. That is why their role becomes way more crucial, not just for economy, but for governance even. That is why I think the whole idea is also to create this kind of new entity, this imaginary entity that was kind of a conglomerate or a corporation, a joint venture from several people that kind of trying to sell us the better future, while in the reality it's still, they are selling us their product for the profit, not necessarily for the good.
Yeah, exactly. Like, it's all also sort of looking at the graphic design and the rhetorics of copywriting and marketing of corporations that value efficiency of their workers and like the maximum profit extraction at the most, and how it's presented as the efficiency should be at the paramount of your health and your wellness, to be said so, and that your mental and health state becomes the asset of the company. Like, you can sort of see it a lot with the trends of tracking employee performance. Yeah, like the big known Amazon is doing that, where you have like these more shocking stories of like keeping up with the pressure. But also there are more and more startups which are now testing and exploring how certain variables and activity monitor tracking, also tracking employees in their private life, affects their performance and therefore profit in the company life. The dystopia is getting normalized, and you have more and more dystopian disaster movies, and everybody sort of feels being part of them with this pandemia.
Yeah.
And actually the problem with that is that it does not bring much of a solution. Like, as one of the speakers, Julia Kloiber, she mentioned that we need to reach more for like sort of optimistic versions of the future, more towards the solar punk, which is sort of the opposite of cyberpunk, but not very well known, which focuses on some sort of constructive future visions. And that indeed it's harder to move on from just dystopias and cyberpunk, but I think that they're also necessary, and like you said, that this genre probably needs to be exhausted even more to become very present, this fact that it exhausted itself, because everybody has this idea of the future which was sort of planted back in the 70s, but right now it feels like that it does not represent the world anymore, and the world is at a different state, and this whole ideas of the future that were created back then, these utopias, very tech-centered, space heroes, flying cars, this cliche does not actually represent the reality of the world in an inclusive sense.
So maybe we should focus a bit back more onto the project itself, because basically I think the part of the whole narrative goes around the character called DONNA, right? Through which the transformation of this character, we kind of can see the arc, and we can see what the vision for the Life Enhancer company, this joint venture that was part of the exhibition, actually looks like.
So Donna has like this soothing voice and guides you through this like really bizarre transformation of turning into cyborg while sort of comforting you, and it represents all of this sort of digital helpers, digital secretary, chatbots, AIs, which are mostly beautiful white female and speaking with a very soothing voice and sort of representing this tech cliche and as well as sci-fi cliche.
True. And what at some point becoming a revelation for her as being initially seen, she was seen to be like a cyborg or android, whatever you want to call it, that at some point she kind of gaining the conscious around what is happening. That was a huge revelation, and it caused the revolt sort of inside.
Yeah, indeed, it sort of caused like the emotional revolt inside, because like I feel like with this new subject as robotic, there's still a lot of questions which need to be tackled by both philosophers and government and policymakers. To what extent are non-living beings part of some kind of inner circle?
Mm-hmm.
If you can say like they're humans, they're domestic animals, they're dogs and cats, and will maybe cyborgs be part of the circle, and will they be included? Will they be counted just as humans? And will some sort of ethical or moral violations towards the cyborg or robot be normalized, or will it be on the opposite, prohibited? And I think you sort of took inspiration for the Donna's awakening in the interview from the Philip K. Dick story of Do Android Dream of Electric Sheep?
I think it was a combination. Like, it's pretty much a big topic that's been brought up, and I think at first was, for example, Isaac Asimov in I, Robot, I think that's what the name was, where he first expressed the first definitions of the robotics, pretty much, like that the robot should never harm a person, and robot shouldn't do anything that may harm a person or whatever, and they should be obedient. So this is like more of the first initial rules that were created by him, and then a lot of discussions that revolved around the robotics and the robots and how we should actually, our attitude should be towards them, basically arouses around that. So people are more questioning whether those rules are still there to be, because, for example, if we sort of creating as humans living it's kind of an artificial life sort of in this sense, right? So we are creating someone who is not in this uncanny valley but really looking like a human, and even though we may feel a bit uncomfortable standing next to the cyborg or like those I don't remember, I think there was this really weirdly looking cyborg lady, robot lady,
like this very uncanny valley like.
Yeah, she has like, I think part of her head is still like, you see those like,
is it by Microsoft maybe?
I'm not sure, probably. Part of the moral dilemma that we would have, whether robots looking just like human are gonna have the same rights as human, and what if we're gonna program that to fully replicate the life of the person, the emotions of the person? Does it basically justifies them to be considered as living beings, and so we should totally change our attitude from them just being servants to us to them being the parts of the society. So we're sort of inventing a new life and inventing the new, I don't know, not race, but a new type of human, which is not a human biologically, but fully replicates the human in other senses. That was part of the question that was brought up in one of the videos that were in the exhibition, and then also there is a beautifully made by Maria and some of her little helpers virtual tour that you can actually go through, and in this 3D environment you're able to go through the questionnaire, where you also be able to see and ask those moral dilemma questions on different topics, including the one whether the robots, even those looking like human and fully replicating as human, whether we still should consider them just a machine, like, you know, you can beat the shit out of your television if you feel like, because it's just your property, you own it. If you want to kick your screen, I wouldn't judge you, like, it's your part. But if the robot who looks like a human, does it justifies the violence against them? Because technically it is your property, or even someone else's property.
Yeah, and I think if it becomes someone else's property, that's where it becomes problematic, because you can just smash your toaster if you like to.
Yeah, but if you would smash someone else's toaster, then you have a problem.
Exactly.
Yeah. So yeah.
Yeah, but talking about the environment, yeah, like I had some great help of Ali, the developer, and so you kind of navigate the space, and some of the rooms sort of create this simulation of the future by this company, Life Enhancer, Decremental Evolutionary Lifestyle, which sort of offers you sneak peeks into potential future scenarios, and based on the questions from the quiz, it lands you in a certain simulation, like is it completely right wing or left wing? Yeah, we can sort of roughly say that. Will the machines be able to replace your job? Would you like that? Would you consider giving a birth to a gene modified baby, or does it stand beyond your ethical or moral norms of acceptance? And it's also sort of questioning, can we predetermine the way the future will develop and the way the evolution will develop with technology interference or not? And to what extent, indeed, because there is a small human in a sense, and there are corporations. And and there's also Donna, this character, which sort of through 3 different movies kind of gains the consciousness, and first starting to like soothingly guide you through this factory of electric dreams, which sort of is intended to make you a little bit doubt, or like, why I'm not part of this future vision, like it does not relate to me completely, and you don't feel part of it, like I think as a lot of people do.
True. Like for a lot of people, it seems like this version or imagination that some people around the future seem to be a nonsense. Just I know that even from talking with some younger people, they're just fully not interested in like I don't know, some science fiction, for example, or fiction itself. I think it's mainly coming from the fact that people would have the prejudice against the word fiction by all means. So whenever it is fiction, it's something that will never happen. While even by using like maybe a bit more provocative, a bit more extreme visuals, interpretations of the future, it definitely still sends the right message to the people to think about how they would find their own place in this future. Because as you said correctly, that people don't see, but I also not sure that if all people even think about like their place in the future and whether they have a place there.
Indeed, like also sort of relieve this like fantasy that does not connect to you at all, and then think about what could be your agency, and also what is happening. I think what you mentioned has to do a lot with the fact that a lot of these visions and narratives are very mainstream, but they populated the screen, the cinematography to the huge extent, which made a lot of voices not to be heard, like other maybe more alternative sci-fi writers like Octavia Butler, and also a lot is there's a great statements of Protopian design by Monica Biciclete, if I'm pronouncing her surname well, about how can protopian design sort of reinvent the course of our technocentric society to develop more in towards inclusivity, humanitarian and social values.
Can you elaborate more on the aesthetics of the exhibition? Why did you pick certain visuals for this specific project?
Yeah, so the aesthetics sort of flirts with aesthetics of the futurism in computer games, like the cliches, the tropes. It sort of transforms the datum space into some sort of game-like environment. And also, now since the exhibition is closed for visitors, you can navigate it with the robot, which makes it even more apocalyptic.
Yeah.
And like getting back to this referencing of like the game environment, it's sort of merging the reality and fiction in some way, and this is what speculative design also does. It sort of takes the elements of reality and explodes them to a certain extent and fictionalizes them. But maybe that's a way to sort of reach towards a new future by first like exhausting these cliches that are still dominating the consciousness, and by unclogging the consciousness we will have more space to move on. Third part, the DONNA goes through this like awakenings and sort of thinks about the new ways we can manage and collectively own the future and have the agency over it, and how like real actions and having the grip on it on the individualistic conscious level can help.
True, I mean that's pretty much what is happening, but also I think the big issue that's kind of bringing up together with her awakening comes also to the place then what could be the way that we could build the inclusive future. I think this is pretty much the question that is right at the end of this third chapter of this trilogy.
Exactly. Yeah, like it's still in process, like it's still a lot to explore because
I think as much as we try to answer this question ourselves as well, I think the greatest suggestion that was brought up like during the exhibition, that it should be like conversation between everyone involved into the future, which is pretty much all humanity, but more like probably should be more coming from the representation level, because clearly it's just impossible to use every single voice in this whole world to be heard, but like maybe if we'll be talking about the representatives of different societies who are just feeling excluded, we just need to ensure that their voices are also heard and their wishes and their problems are also taken into account when we are even offering some kind of alternative for what is being exploited so far by those people who build or envision the future right now, because it just really feels like a lot of problems are either being forgotten or just neglected, and that is something that we should try to meet as much as we are being idealist, as we are trying to help everyone.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, sort of spicing up and activating the power of collective consciousness and its power to create something on a collective level as well as on the individual level, and also diminishing greed and extraction.
Exactly. Like we should try to improve our cohesion of all the moving parts of our huge mechanism humankind is.
Indeed.
Thank you very much for joining our conversation. It was a pleasure talking with you, Mary. Finally, you made it to the podcast after multiple invitations. It was nice seeing you today. if you guys feel like you have any further questions or comments, I would really love to see them all down below. If you have any questions directed to Mary per se, they would be sent to her.
Exactly. And feel free to visit the exhibition and check it out.
Exactly. I will leave the link in the description, of course, so you can all check it out, and to the website and to the exhibition itself, so you guys can enjoy what we were talking about, and of course, stay healthy.